Before we begin, this episode may not be appropriate for younger audiences.
So we're on the fifth floor of a courthouse in Fall River. We're looking out at the Taunton River, which is pretty gray today.
It's only been a month since we started publishing Snitch City, and already my colleague Andrew Ryan and I are back in court.
Just outside courtroom 7, it's almost 9 o'clock, here for a hearing in the Steven Ortiz case.
You heard about Steven Ortiz in the last episode. Back in 2017, he was arrested in an epic bust. His fiancee, Carly Medeiros, was there that night too. And one of the cops who was part of the arrest was her secret lover, a New Bedford police officer, Jared Lucas.
All of a sudden, when I turn my head, I see Jared. I was like, what is he doing here? Like, this is fucked.
The bust was the result of a year-long investigation involving numerous local, state, and federal agencies. It was a massive effort. So big, police gave it an official title, Operation High Stakes. And at the center of it all was Ortiz, who police said ran a sprawling heroin trafficking ring.
Which one is Ortiz?
Shaved head, glasses.
So the gentleman in the gray suit?
Yeah.
This case has gone on for nearly 8 years, and I've been following it closely for several of them.
Conservative estimate is probably about the 20th hearing I've been to as part of this case since 2021.
At most of these hearings, not much happens. But Carly told me that today might be different. She and Steven Ortiz have had their ups and downs, but they're together again. She's been told to stay close by, but out of court.
Today there's several New Bedford police officers, detectives have been subpoenaed and are expected to show up. I've also heard that Paul Oliveira, the current police chief, has also been subpoenaed and is expected to be here, so
we'll see what happens.
yeah.
Ortiz and his co-defendants are clustered in the hallway outside the courtroom. They're waiting for the proceeding to begin. Lawyers hustle in and out, including Ortiz's attorney, Rosemary Scappichio.
I have another hearing on another homicide right after this.
Okay.
So I won't be right out.
We'll wait.
Scappichio took on Ortiz's case 2 years ago, after he called her office over and over. She's a big deal in Boston legal circles.
She did not seem happy that the officers she'd subpoenaed are not here.
Yeah, I think I heard her say that she'd subpoenaed 8 officers and none of them were here yet.
That's right. And some sarcastic language was asking where they might be hiding, so.
And now, discreetly, she's giving us a heads up.
You guys aren't going to want to miss this.
You're not going to want to miss this, she says. Scappichio walks over to her client. He and his 3 co-defendants start to smile.
I wonder if they're going to dismiss her.
I wonder if they're going to kill the case.
This story, this case, is what first led me to New Bedford. And what I discovered was that Operation High Stakes wasn't the heroic feat of detective work that police hailed it as. The case was tainted from the start. You see, Carly figured out that the cop, Jared Lucas, used her, not just for sex, but for information. Information that made its way from the bedroom to the courtroom. And in police reports and official documents, Lucas said the intel came not from his lover, but from a confidential informant. More than 2 years after I broke this story, one drug trafficking case has already been tossed. Now, an even bigger case hangs in the balance, and it could all lead to a reckoning for New Bedford police and the way that they use confidential informants. I'm Dugan Arnett, and this is Spotlight, Snitch City. Episode 6, Case Dismissed.
All right, the defendants are coming into the courtroom. Still does not appear that there's any police detectives or anybody from the New Bedford Police Department that we've seen.
No, me either.
Because that way he Court in session. Please be seated.
Judge Renee Dupuy walks in.
Good morning. This is the first call of the list for Friday, April 11th, 2025. The Honorable Renee Dupuy presiding.
The first order of business this morning is the Ortiz case. and Scappichio wants it thrown out.
Judge, I would just ask that the case be dismissed with prejudice.
With prejudice is important. It means the case can never be brought to court again.
The 2017 case, the Commonwealth's agreeing that there was egregious police misconduct in this case. And this has been a long, winding road, as we all know. And I don't think the Commonwealth objects to a dismissal with prejudice.
I don't object to a dismissal with prejudice. I would.
For 8
very
years,
briefly
prosecutors have
like to
pursued this
address
case in court filings and intense courtroom hearings. And they've been unwilling to fold, even as the list of problems in the case kept growing. Now, though, Prosecutor Patrick Driscoll tells the judge he's reviewed the case and the evidence.
And after that review, it is my determination that I cannot, in good faith, go forward and suggest that the government could cut out Carly Medeiros' involvement and Jared Lucas's involvement in the case, and that the case would stand on its own merits without them. Rather, their involvement in the case has tainted the case, that they can't be cut out, and it taints the entire investigation, and therefore dismissal is an appropriate remedy.
And just like that, the prosecutor throws in the towel.
The court also found that Carly Medeiros was not a credible witness, had many reasons to lie.
Wait a minute, Judge, I'm not going to agree to any of this.
But even as Driscoll agrees to dismiss the case, to give in, he's still disparaging Carly. And Scappichio isn't having it.
This isn't what we agreed to.
Okay, well,
In terms of making credibility determination, let's call the witnesses then.
Okay.
Let's just call all the witnesses. I subpoenaed 8 police officers. Let's do it.
all right.
Carly's always maintained that Detective Jared Lucas wasn't the only New Bedford police officer who broke the rules. She swears other cops knew about her relationship with Lucas and helped keep it secret. Now, Scappichio is telling the judge that she can prove at least one police officer, Kevin Barbosa, perjured himself in this very
I understand
courtroom.
that, Judge. But we were prepared to call Carly Medeiros as a witness. We were prepared to rehabilitate her. We were prepared to show
that would be
police
a
officers,
long
including Barbosa, lied and committed perjury under oath, and the Commonwealth knows it. So for them to stand here now and say she was not credible, I think is just disingenuous.
Driscoll, the prosecutor, doesn't want to open that door. But he resents her suggestion that the state was aware of any perjury.
So I'm not going to stand here and be accused of trying to cover something up when I am quoting a court decision.
Okay, let's take it down a notch. You may proceed, and I'll give you whatever time you need, okay?
Scappichio's already gotten the case tossed, but she wants more. She wants the court to hear from the 8 officers that were subpoenaed.
And I know at least Officer Barbosa testified in front of you when he said he hadn't had any contact with Carly Medeiros, and we were here ready to prove that that was a lie, that he perjured himself in front of you, and you based your decision on his perjured testimony, Judge. So I understand the
Perjury is a
Commonwealth's
crime for
position. I just
anyone,
wanted to make our position
but it's
clear.
especially bad for a police officer because it can tarnish their credibility in other cases. We reached out to the police department and to Kevin Barbosa directly for his response to Scappichio's perjury claim. We didn't hear back.
I just wanted to make our position clear. Carly Medeiros was ready to testify. I subpoenaed 8 police officers to prove what we think was a pattern of misconduct by the police department in this case, using drug-addicted women for their disposal. I don't agree that this was.
But the judge isn't swayed. She's ready to move on.
I do appreciate that the Commonwealth took the opportunity to evaluate this case. As we all know, I'm very familiar with it, and I think that this is the appropriate end. I'm going to allow it. Okay.
Thank you.
Case dismissed. Charges dropped. After 8 long years, Ortiz and his co-defendants are off the hook. But there's a downside. The dismissal means there won't be a hearing. And those 8 officers won't have to take the stand or face hard questions. One of those officers would have caused quite a stir. New Bedford Police Chief Paul Oliveira. I thought this might finally be the moment. The chance to hear from the former drug cop who allegedly misused CIs and then went on to run the department. Instead, the court, and most importantly, the public, will never know the truth. The police won't have to explain themselves. And defense attorneys will tell you, this is an example of how police and prosecutors can bury things that are uncomfortable. There's no incentive to turn over more rocks or dig deeper. Here, prosecutors had a decision to make. If they drop the case, they take a loss, but limit the fallout and stop the bleeding. If they pursue the charges, officers could perjure themselves, or worse, expose wrongdoing that could cast doubt on other cases. Then, the dominoes could really fall. The case is dismissed, but Andrew and I still have questions.
I want to get the ADA.
We follow prosecutor Patrick Driscoll out the door. He's hustling, walking quickly, with a woman who handles press for the Bristol DA's office.
Can we ask that a couple things about what just happened? Why not?
I just need you from you.
Can we just, are you enabling this system?
If you want to make inquiry, you can email the DA's office and someone will get back to you.
Oh, no, they haven't. We actually specifically requested an interview with...
Again, if you want to email the DA's office, someone will get back to you.
We chat about this case. Can you tell us, are you going to do a broader inquiry looking at...
If you want to email the DA's office, someone will get back to you.
Got nothing to say?
We want to hear from Driscoll because it's prosecutors who could push for real accountability. They actually have some power to check the police. Prosecutors like Driscoll could be key to stopping misconduct by demanding more from cops. But in this case, they chose to punt instead. And Driscoll had zero interest in talking to us.
Can I at least get a reaction to our reporting?
If you want to email the DA's office, someone will get back to you.
Anytime you want to talk about this, we'd love to. We'd love to hear the DA's perspective because I think it's an important one because you guys are the most powerful actors in this whole system.
Andrew and I take the elevator back upstairs and find a quiet place to debrief. As we're sitting there, my phone rings. It's Carly.
Hey, Carly, how's it going? So you heard what happened?
Yeah, of course.
We wanted to interview Carly's fiancé about his newfound freedom, but he slipped out of the courthouse before we could catch him. He was on his way to celebrate.
What's going through your head right now? What's going through Steven's head?
I'm fucking relieved, Dugan. Like, longer than 8 years, because you gotta understand this started longer than 8 years ago. And I'm so relieved and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you sticking by us and believing me and I'm just, honestly, it doesn't even feel real right now. Stuff happens, people make, I'm not proud of what happened. I'm not proud of the mistakes that I made. But you can fix it and correct it by doing the right thing and coming forward.
Carly doesn't really talk about herself as a victim. But Ortiz's lawyer, Rosemary Scappichio, doesn't mince words.
Kylie Medeiros was a drug addict. In her affidavit, she said, every single solitary time I met him, we had sex. That's not a mutually beneficial relationship. That's a cop whose job was to protect and serve, taking advantage of a young, drug-addicted woman. And she's
Scappichio's blunt and fierce, especially when she suspects police wrongdoing. Her work has led to several convictions being overturned, which makes her somewhat of a local legend.
Is there any way we go back in the corner to try to cut the wind a little bit?
We caught up with her outside of the courthouse. Obviously, Scappichio's pleased with what just happened.
Well, I mean, I think it was the appropriate thing to do. What got me angry was that the Commonwealth is taking the position that the dismissal was because Carly Medeiros was lying. And I don't think that's the reason for the dismissal at all. I think it was because the police officers were lying and they knew that we were going to expose their lies. Judge Dupuy made a determination that Carly was not credible. She based that on Barboza's testimony that he had never been in touch with Carly outside of this one controlled buy. And that's just not true. And we were ready, willing, and able to prove that today with not only Carly's testimony, but documents and putting Barboza on the stand. And ultimately the Commonwealth said enough is enough, and they dismissed it, so we didn't get the opportunity to do that.
And you would argue, I think, that this case getting thrown out is a good thing?
Yes.
Because of the misconduct?
Egregious misconduct, not just misconduct, egregious misconduct. What I think should happen, anytime that a police officer gets found to have engaged in misconduct, which should be happening with this district attorney's office, is they should be going back through every single solitary case that cop put his hands on and determine whether or not he lied in that case too. If the informant in that case was really an informant, or if this was all based on his sleeping with Carly Medeiros.
I assume that the district attorney's office is going to investigate that now, right?
I wouldn't assume that. if my life depended on it. I think they should. Ethically, they told us they couldn't go forward on this because of the egregious misconduct, but nobody has notified me that there's a single investigation or that they need anything that we've uncovered in this case. They have a vested interest in not exposing these police officers because all of their drug cases in their gang cases depend on it. If these cops are lying, then what happens to all of the pending cases? What happens to the cases that they already testified in? You got to ask yourself that question. The Commonwealth agreed in this case that it was egregious misconduct. So what are you going to do about it? I'm thrilled that they're dismissing the case. It was the right result. But here's the problem. What are you going to do, Commonwealth of Massachusetts? What are you going to do, the police department? What are you going to do, the Attorney General's office? What are you going to do, the federal government? Who's going to look into this? Because we don't have the power to do it. Our power was what was going to happen today. And they quashed that by dismissing the case.
In the last few months, we've reached out to every public official we could think of. New Bedford's police chief and mayor, members of the city council, the Bristol County DA's office, even the FBI. The most we've gotten back is a short statement, and some have ignored us altogether. Scappichio underlines the vulnerability of informants, especially women like Carly. And I've talked to others in my reporting for this series who have stories similar to Carly's. Some we weren't able to include.
And, I've been doing this now 35 years. There is a difference in my mind, between a drug-addicted woman and a drug-addicted man. A drug-addicted woman, in my opinion, is much more vulnerable. They're much more inclined to sell their body to get high. And people are much more inclined to take advantage of them. The police are supposed to protect them, not just because you're claiming she was an informant that she never was, but she's a human being who lives in this community. And she has a drug problem. And instead of protecting her, you were using her for sex. And this poor woman describes the relationship as, he was in love with me. She believed this guy was in love with her because that's how screwed up her mind was. But when do we look at the whole picture and say, there's something really wrong here? There's something that we need to do to investigate this, to make sure that no other defendant is either charged or has been convicted based on the conduct of either the drug unit or the gang unit in this case. So,
I think I asked you this earlier, but are you, part of you, a little disappointed you weren't able to sort of do your thing?
We would have kicked their ass.
In a way, the dismissal of Ortiz's case should be a relief. The system worked like it was supposed to. Tainted evidence came to light, prosecutors and defense attorneys sparred, and in the end, a problematic case was dismissed. But still, it's hard not to look at the case and wonder. After 8 years, more than 30 hearings, and countless taxpayer dollars, what do we really have to show for it? To date, not a single person has been held to account for the disaster that was the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Steven Ortiz. Not the individuals at the heart of the alleged heroin trafficking ring, not the detective whose transgressions torpedoed the case. He's retired now, by the way, collecting a healthy pension. And certainly not the DA's office, which would rather dismiss a compromised case than confront the abuse in a system it so deeply relies on. Meanwhile, every day, judges keep signing search warrants. Cops keep kicking down doors, and prosecutors keep bringing charges. In Snitch City, the beat goes on. This episode of Spotlight Snitch City was reported and hosted by me, Dugan Arnett. Additional reporting and producing by Andrew Ryan. This episode was produced and sound designed by Jasmine Aguilera. Executive producers are Spotlight editor Brendan McCarthy and Kristen Nelson, the Globe's head of audio. Additional editing and support from Gordon Russell. Engineering by Uzair Ahmed. Episode artwork by Julian D. Paulson. Art direction by Ryan Huddle. Podcast visualization by Olivia Yarvis and Anush Elbakian. Heather Cyrus is the audience editor. Tim Rasmussen is visuals editor. Marketing support for this podcast comes from The Podglomerate.